Let's get to our big game of the week. I feel like we're always talking about Alabama when it comes to a big game of the week, but we are talking Bama versus Mississippi State, and a game that I believe has huge implications in the rest of the SEC West, because if Bama loses another one, their talks of winning a championship probably done. Mississippi State, the 2 losses, I think they still expect to have a brilliant season, but that third loss could be huge for them. Let's talk to a couple insiders. Robbie Falk, Mississippi State insider for 247 Sports, Starkville Daily, and of course the co-host of Thunder and Lightning podcast, and Tony Tsoukalis, the managing editor of TideIllustrated.com. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
All right, let's get.
How's it going, Dave? Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you, Robbie. Appreciate you. Let's get things going right now. Robbie, what went wrong for Mississippi State against Kentucky?
I think that Kentucky did a good job defensively, giving Will Rogers fits. It lined up a lot like that LSU game to me. I thought that they disguised what they were doing well pre-snap. Will Rogers wasn't able to really dissect it as well. And I thought State kind of got away from what's been working in the past few weeks, and that's running the football. They ran the football, I think, 10 times in that game for like 22 yards. The offense kind of dipped back into that 2020 stage where they couldn't run the football and they just kind of put all their eggs in the passing basket. And that's just not going to work in the SEC, especially against teams like Kentucky that has a really good defensive coordinator. And, of course, Mark Stoops is the head coach, a defensive-minded coach. He knows how to scheme it up. So I thought that State really got away from what's been doing well for them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they just couldn't stop the run. Chris Rodriguez, they fed him all night long. I think he had 31 carries, almost 200 yards rushing. And Kentucky just said, we're going to put the ball in our running game's hands. And then a few pass plays downfield opened up. And I think it really broke Mississippi State's back late when they weren't able to get off the field defensively. So it was really kind of twofold. Defensively and offensively just wasn't their best game.
Tony, I'll ask you the same question because it's hard to say that when you see a game that, both teams almost combined for, 100 points. That being said, Bama does lose a game. It's almost 2 weeks in a row that they almost lose, but they did win against Texas A&M. What went wrong for the Tide?
Yeah, 17 penalties. School record. That you're not gonna win very many games when you are flagged 17 times in a game. And they also gave up obviously 52 points. It's the most it's given up since 1907 when they were beaten 54-4 to Sewanee. So shows you how long it's been since Alabama's given up that many points. Look, all the mistakes Alabama's been making throughout this season, they've been kind of playing with fire with these penalties, with these giving up big plays. It all seemed to kind of explode on them against Tennessee. And I mean, this was coming, I didn't expect Tennessee to win. But like, am I surprised if Alabama continues to play like this? No, they'll probably lose again if they don't fix these problems. Now, I mean, you've seen them kind of make these problems in the past and get over them. This Tennessee game was a lot like the Texas A&M game last year, where it's like Alabama dug itself into a hole, came back, should have won, had all the opportunities to win, and then still blew it, So I don't know. Unfortunately for Mississippi State, I mean, they have to play Alabama back-to-back seasons coming off of a loss. So we'll see if Alabama responds the same way it did last season against Mississippi State. I think this is a better Mississippi State team than the one Alabama played last season. So, but yeah, Alabama can't be making these mental mistakes every week, because we saw this week that it'll end up biting them.
Rob, you told me something before the segment started that kind of caught my attention, that Mike Leach has not scored a touchdown against Alabama. So does that mean that Will Rogers probably has to have, he's already had a great career, but he has to have his best game ever?
Needs to have a really good one. This offense has not been able to score much at all against Alabama since Nick Saban's been there. I mean, for the most part, for whatever reason, some other teams have been able to have some success at times. We've seen the success that Tennessee's having offensively. A&M's even been able to score a few touchdowns. Mississippi State just cannot do it. They had one good season, I think, offensively against Nick Saban, and that was in 2017. Had a chance to win that ball game, and Alabama was able to pull it out in the end. Other than that, most of these games haven't been very close. And in this game, I don't think anybody's expecting Mississippi State to win. What you want to see is some progress. You want to see Mississippi State score a couple of touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns. show some signs of life offensively against a really good defense. That's what people want to see going in this ball game, and it's something that nobody has seen in a long time, especially since Mike Leach has been here. It's just been a field goal fest, basically. Since he's been here, the last touchdown was in 2019 under Joe Moorhead, and that was a blowout game as well. So, it's kind of a weird deal. Mississippi State always kind of gets the brunt against Alabama. I think this is the 5th time since 2010 that they've played Alabama coming off a loss, and Bama doesn't lose very many games during the regular season. So most times when Alabama's losing and it's not Auburn that they're losing to, Mississippi State's sitting there waiting in the wings to feel the brunt of it all. So, we'll see what happens. I'm expecting an angry Alabama. I'm expecting an Alabama team that's going to play much more crisp this weekend, and who knows what to expect from Mississippi State. But the outcome, to me, is probably going to be a bad one for Bulldog fans.
Yep, Robbie making that point, about the lack of touchdowns. The last touchdown Mississippi State's thrown scored in Bryant-Denny Stadium was by Dak Prescott in 2014. So, I mean, that is a crazy stat right there. In the 3 meetings that Alabama's played in Bryant-Denny Stadium since then, Alabama's outscored Mississippi State, I think 116-3. I mean, it's been pretty crazy in terms of, especially when you look at the offense that Mississippi State's been able to have. It is really kind of weird how this rivalry is kind of played out in that regard.
Should be a fun night. Should be a really fun night.
Yeah, it's must-watch television. Let me follow up with Bryce Young and the kind of game that he had, just the gamer. I mean, we know how great he is. I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winner, but how is he doing leading into this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, he looked amazing. I think that his game against Tennessee might be one of the best games I've seen him play for Alabama. It's a shame that he couldn't get the help he needed in that game, because, I mean, some of the plays he made, he reminded me of Johnny Manziel, just kind of escaping pressure and just kind of like the backyard football aspect of it. And he was just, dodging defenders, olaying people, and then finding open people. It was kind of a wasted performance. I think if Alabama pulls out that win, you look at that and you say, man, that might have been his Heisman moment this season, So I guess the shoulder looks fine. I mean, you can't really play better than he did against Tennessee. So I think that should be, that shouldn't be an issue moving forward. He did take some big hits against Tennessee, but it didn't seem to affect him. So I think in terms of his status and stuff, I think he should be just fine.
All right, last question for both of you, and Tony, you answer it first. Just what does a loss do for this season for Alabama, for Mississippi State, considering where Bama expects to be and where Mississippi State was expecting to finish out, especially early with those big-time victories? Tony, you go first.
Well, a loss would pretty much eliminates Alabama from the playoff. I would think so. Maybe there's some weird scenario where they could hope for a few losses and things to play out, and maybe they win the SEC title, and maybe you make the playoff with 2 losses, but that's probably not going to happen. So a loss probably ends Alabama's season, for all intents and purposes. They can't lose back-to-back games either. I mean, that's just very uncharacteristic of Nick Saban. So, I think that, Robbie's right. They're going to have an angry Alabama, but I think it's, it's an Alabama that's going to have to prove itself. And it definitely can't afford a loss this week.
Robbie?
For Mississippi State, I don't think it changes a whole lot. Everybody's pretty much penciled this in as a loss anyway. I mean, that's kind of what happens at the beginning of the season. It is what it is. But it just puts more pressure on them to go win these games here in the back half of the schedule. Georgia's going to be another one that people are probably penciling in as a loss. So that leaves you 3 ball games there that you've got to take care of business in, and that's East Tennessee State, which I think shouldn't be a problem. Auburn, who showed signs of life against Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss on the road. You're playing a team that's beaten you 2 straight seasons, and you haven't played well on the road this year. That game gets magnified this year, I think, because you didn't take care of business on the road at LSU and Kentucky. So, this game is what it is. It's kind of one of those games, just get it out of the way if you're Mississippi State. But moving forward, I mean, those games are really magnified for Mississippi State down the stretch.
Awesome stuff, Tony and Robbie. Appreciate your time, guys. Let's do it again.
Definitely.
Thanks, David.